Well, today's the last day of the year. It's a Saturday, so it's Imprimis time. We always have to talk about Imprimis. But I get asked many times what was my role at Hillsdale and how was I involved in the founding of Imprimis. Let me tell you the story. In January of 1972, I showed up on the Hillsdale campus at the invitation of Dr. George Roche, who had not even been president 1 year at Hillsdale, and he had asked me initially to come in the summer, but I had a military commitment to fulfill. I was an officer, an ROTC graduate from Tulane University, and I told Dr. Roche that I couldn't come because I had to fulfill my service. When I finished that service at the end of 1971 on active duty, I stayed in for six or 8 years, I think. I called Dr. Roche and he said, I would love to have you come to Hillsdale. I told him that I would give him 2 years of my life, and I showed up in January of 1972, building on the ideas that Dr. Roche had experienced when we were together in New Orleans before he came to Hillsdale, when he participated in a 4-day symposium of ideas, men and women who we had brought together at Tulane University to speak about contemporary issues. Anyway, it was early that spring. We were having dinner at George's house and his wife June, and she mentioned, in fact, at that dinner, the idea that we ought to continue something like the Freeman. The Freeman had been the publication at the Foundation for Economic Education. It was always a collection of articles on different topics involving freedom, and Leonard Read would always have a little note that he would put on top of an issue of the Freeman to highlight one of the articles. And June said at that dinner that we should do something like that at Hillsdale, and I remember George and I talking about it. And one of the things that came out of our discussion is that we should do something simpler than the Freeman and get something that had just one idea, one article by one person, so that it would be a simpler read and maybe even more compelling and would have be differentiated from the Freeman. And the Freeman continues to this day to be a very, very good book of ideas, if you will, but Imprimis was to be a single issue on ideas. And then we had to discuss who would be the first speaker. And there were two people associated with the Foundation for Economic Education that we had discussed. One was Leonard Read, the president of the Foundation and the founder of the Foundation. And the second was Henry Hazlitt. Henry Hazlitt, a wonderful man. I had the great pleasure of having dinner 2 or 3 times with Dr. Hazlitt. He lectured 2 or 3 or 4 times at Fee when I was there. His seminal book, and a very simple book, is called Economics in One Lesson. I'm not sure I have it on the bookshelf here, but I do have it in another part of my bookshelves. And I would encourage everyone to pick up Hazlitt's book, Economics in One Lesson. But anyway, after meeting with I had a beer one night with an art student, a senior, and I was telling him that we were trying to come up with this publication and could he help design something for it. And this young man we talked about it, he began to put some sketches together while I worked through a dictionary, literally opening a dictionary, flipping through it and going down column by column, and stumbled on the word imprimis, meaning first things, first principles. And he came up with really the brilliant idea of having shaded colors. Now, I don't have a colored one with me here this Saturday morning. I'll go look for one, but Susan knows we've got a lot of boxes full of stuff and it's hard to find. But anyway, the whole idea was ideas could lead from light to darkness or darkness to light. And that was the whole theme of this framework, of this name Imprimis and the way it was laid out. And 2 days later, I took that into George's office as a mock-up for the first issue. He loved it. I know that June liked the idea of Imprimis. And the first mailing list, as I recall, was we did the Christmas card list from Dr. Roche's and June's Christmas card list. We also took some names from Fee that had been friends of George's, and then some Hillsdale names. I don't think we had more than 500 names in that first mailing. The two things that George and I agreed on with Imprimis is, number one, it had to be kept to a single article by one author to have that one focus. Second, it would come out monthly. We wouldn't do advertising. It would be a clean copy. And in the end, we decided, since Dr. Hazlitt was coming to Hillsdale I think, to lecture that year, I do know that we ended up choosing Henry Hazlitt's article, and he did it on price controls. It's interesting, you know, that was roughly 40 years ago, this coming May or June, and the same problems exist today. The government is trying to regulate commerce in a way that is creating shortages, that is creating dysfunctionalities and disequilibrium. And it's also penalizing people because we're being overtaxed and overregulated. But Imprimis grew out of the fact that ideas do have consequences, and that if Hillsdale could be that beacon of light, and I will say that Dr. Larry Arnn has carried on that tradition at Hillsdale in a wonderful way. He is taking Hillsdale to a different level because of his constitutional background, and his lectures on the Constitution inform the public debate today. So I would encourage everyone, go to Hillsdale's website, go to the Imprimis website, order it for a friend, order it for a family. This is a publication that keeps on giving because it stimulates good ideas for freedom. Anyway, thank you for sharing this last day of the year with me. I wish everyone a very blessed and happy new year. I hope the year that has just passed has been a good one, but even in the stumbles or the challenges, that we learn from those and we make this coming year even better. God bless you all. Thank you for what you do, and let's go onward and upward for freedom. Thank you very much.